We are One Direction!
Picture this. Galaxy leggings, Starbucks, Disney edits, the rise of Wattpad, Tumblr blogs, messy buns, and all sorts of questionable trends stacked together to serve the ultimate 2014 teenage fantasy. It's no denying that the early 2010s had so many subcultures which redefined what it meant to be a teenager, and its impact may have even left a mark on our modern day. When discussing Tumblr in its early years, it's impossible not to think of the flower crown edits of popular YouTubers and celebrities, the fanfictions, imagines, fan art, and shipping wars. Sitting at the top of the Tumblr celebrity hierarchy was the blueprint of boy bands with a cult following in the millions, and its eventual dismantlement leaving the world in shambles. During 2010, 5 teenagers individually auditioned for the X Factor and unfortunately did not succeed to become solo candidates. However, Simon Cowell and Nicole Scherzinger called them back and told them to form a group as they'd be stronger as a boy band. To think that this multi-million-dollar empire was all completely by chance, the judges handpicking each member from a set of photographs. Harry Styles originally came up with their group name One Direction. Thus, the boy band was born, the group unaware of the global impact they'd have within a few short years. Before we dive deeper into their influence, let's take a look at a brief rundown on each member's early life leading up to the X Factor. Niall James Horan was born on the 13th of September 1993 and lived in County Westmeath, Ireland with his older brother and parents. When he was just 5 years old, his parents divorced, so he lived with just his mom and brother for about a year. The boys did eventually move back with their dad because they missed him. Niall attended St. Kenny's National School and Mary's College. His musical skills started to showcase when he was just 11 and taught himself how to play the guitar by watching YouTube videos. He performed at the Mullingar Arts Centre during a fundraiser where he was a teenager, bagging a support slot with Lloyd Daniels at the Academy Club in Dublin. Niall would later audition for X Factor at the age of 16. Zayn Javad Malik was born in Yorkshire, England on the 12th of January 1993. He had an older sister and 2 younger sisters, all raised under a Muslim household. The schools Zayn attended were Lower Fields Primary School and Tongue High School in Bradford. He would often contribute to school productions and take performing art classes, listening to his dad's urban, mainly R&B and hip-hop music records. His first time singing on stage was when Jay Sean visited his school. Despite his talents, he originally wanted to academically pursue English to become an English teacher. At 17, he auditioned for the X Factor, but on the morning of, he almost didn't attend out of fear. His mom had to coax him into going. Liam James Payne was born on the 29th of August 1993 and resided in West Midlands, England. He grew up as the baby of the family, having 2 older sisters. He unfortunately experienced a lot of health issues as a child due to being born 3 weeks earlier than anticipated. Liam had to do regular tests in the hospital until he was 4, as he had a dysfunctional kidney. To cope with this pain, he had to get 32 injections in his arms throughout the day, every day as a child. As a high schooler, he was an athlete who was quite good at cross-country running. Liam would go on to study music at the City of Wolverhampton College. Eventually, he performed in front of 26,000 people during a football match. His introduction in the media was when he was 12 and a part of Pink Productions theater company. Unlike a few other members of One Direction, Liam actually auditioned for X Factor previously at only 14 years old. Unfortunately, he was unsuccessful at the judges' houses, but Simon Cowell told him to come back in 2 years. Harry Edward Styles was born on the 1st of February 1994 and resided in Worcestershire, England with his mom, dad, and older sister. When he was just 7, his parents divorced. His mother remarried twice, and it was through this that Harry would have an older stepbrother and stepsister. As a child, Harry would enjoy entertaining family members and discovered a love of music, his first ever recorded song being Elvis Presley's The Girl of My Best Friend. He attended Holmes Chapel Comprehensive School and temporarily became a lead singer for a local band, winning a Battle of the Bands competition. At 16, he had a part-time job working at W. Mandeville Bakery, and this was when his mom brought up the idea of auditioning for the X Factor. Louis Troy Austin was born in Yorkshire, England on the 24th of December 1991. His parents divorced when he was just a toddler, therefore becoming estranged from his dad and taking his stepfather's name Tomlinson. This resulted in him having 4 younger half-sisters. Louis also has 3 other half-siblings from his mother's other marriage. He attended the Hayfield School and then went to Holcroft School as he originally failed his first year of A-levels. Louis worked in View Cinema and a football stadium as a teenager. He also appeared in a few school musicals at Holy Cross, which partially motivated him to audition for X Factor. Another experience which motivated him was when he was 14 and replaced in a band he was a part of. Him and two siblings also received extra roles in the British drama Fat Friends, which encouraged him to further pursue acting as he joined an acting school in Barnsley. Louis obtained small roles in the film If I Had You and Waterloo Road. Like Liam, Louis auditioned for the X Factor before 2010. However, didn't make it past the producer's audition in 2009. He was going to return the following year, leading us up to the group's eventual assemblement. As most of us know, The X Factor is a British reality show created by Simon Cowell, where contestants perform against each other to impress judges and a live audience. The winning prize is a record contract which would indefinitely give their careers a kickstart into the music industry. When the members of 1D auditioned, X Factor was well into starting Series 7 of the show, which was to air between the 21st of August and to finish on the 12th of December 2010. The competition was divided into 4 sections: auditions, boot camp, judges' houses, and live shows. If a contestant was successful in an audition, they would progress onto boot camp, splitting acts into the categories of boys, girls, over 28s, and groups. Each future member of One Direction did not actually succeed onto the stage as soloists, but the judges definitely saw potential in all of them, which is why they were called back to form a group to progress onto boot camp. Nicole and Simon both claimed to have come up with the boy band, but a video released in 2022 actually showcased Nicole playing the biggest role in forming One Direction. There was a controversy surrounding this choice of fusing soloists into a group, which was also done with another group of women, as many viewers complained it was unfair to the other contestants. Regardless, all 5 members got together for around 2 weeks to practice and get to know each other before the next section of the competition, the judges' houses. During this stage, the producers assigned judges to mentor competitors, picking out 8 participants per category to progress to the next part. Competitors will perform in private residences for each judge, who would then decide which singers progressed to the live show. The first song One Direction performed together was an acoustic version of Torn. Simon described the group as confident, fun, like a gang of friends, and kind of fearless. Harry later came up with their name during this stage. One Direction were strong competitors throughout the series, even reaching the finals and quickly growing a large UK fan base. Around October 2010, the group began to film video diaries together, making fans feel even closer to One Direction. Despite making it so far into the competition, they were eliminated, winning 3rd place. Their song Forever Young, which they were planning on releasing if they won, had been leaked onto the internet. Some fans conspired that Simon intentionally leaked it. Despite the fact that the group didn't win, they managed to land a contract with Simon's company Psycho on the 13th of December 2010. As part of their deal with Psycho, each of the boy band members were reportedly only paid an initial £8,000. The company invested £2 million into the group. Simon could see One Direction's potential and made their debut his priority for 2011. Almost immediately after they signed the contract, One Direction flew to Los Angeles to begin working on their first album with Red One in January 2011. The group continued to make vlogs together, but the more particularly noted vlogs were the ones with Harry and Louis. They first started filming twit camps together on the 23rd of January 2011, sparking a lot of discussion and interest in their relationship, but more on that later. A day after that, Zayn and Niall posted their own twit cam. A few weeks into February, the band would publish their first book with Harper Collins, One Direction Forever Young, our official X Factor story, which got surprisingly high ratings. It was written during their time in the show and was most likely finished in December 2010. It's crazy to think that 5 months ago we didn't know each other at all. We were just 5 guys from different corners of the country who dreamed of being pop stars. As the band continued to work on the album, they participated in the X Factor Live Tour. The X Factor Live Tour occurs after each series finishes, in which finalists and contestants travel to UK and Ireland. It began on the 19th of February in Birmingham and concluded on the 9th of April in Cardiff. The group performed for over 500,000 people throughout the UK. After the tour ended, they went back to recording more of the album in London and Los Angeles, working with many famous producers. On the 4th of April, One Direction starred on the Alan Titchmarsh show when they confirmed the lead single was called What Makes You Beautiful, set to release in June. then pushed back to August, and once more pushed back to September. Regardless of the pushback dates, they had already recorded the music video for the song over the span of 2 days in July and were planning to release it in the UK during August. The group participated in various interviews to discuss and build anticipation surrounding the release. Leading up to the publication, there was a 5-day countdown, building further anticipation for the music video. When What Makes You Beautiful was released on the 11th of September, it saw instant success. The song hit #1 on the Irish single charts only 4 days after its release, holding its top spot for an entire month and spending 25 weeks on the chart overall. It was the 14th best-selling single of 2011 on the Irish single charts. Not bad at all for a first debut. In the UK, it sold 100,000 copies by the 3rd day of release. It was the highest first-week UK sales in 2011. At this point, their song had become internationally known, ranking up charts in various other countries. Majority of the year continued to focus on their debut album. The band was also invited to BBC Radio's Teen Choice Awards on the 9th of October, as they performed alongside other famous musicians. 1D finally revealed their album's title Up All Night in the official band website on the 15th of October 2011. 2 days later, the track listing was released and the official artwork was revealed a few days after that. Several tracks from the album were shown during a Ustream in November. Columbia Records proceeded to sign a record deal with the group so they could launch in North America. That month, Up All Night was finally released in the UK and Ireland and saw instant success. It was critically commended and became UK's fastest-selling 2011 debut album. In November 2011, the band announced their Up All Night tour. They also announced they'd be joining the Better With You tour with Big Time Rush as an opening act for 10 shows. 1D's tickets sold out within minutes, their schedules becoming increasingly more busy. The Gotta Be You music video release, they hosted album signings, went to interviews, and paparazzi were starting to pay even more attention to the boys. On top of that, December marked One Direction's first headlining UK concert tour, the Up All Night tour. Niall recalls the first night being a disaster. I never want to talk about that gig again. Worst night of my life. The worst One Direction show ever. We've refused to talk about it ever since. It was a disaster. We were just a joke. Anything we rehearsed just went out the window. It was our first ever gig and we just didn't know what the expletive was going on. Contrary to Niall's recountment, One Direction's performance at the Watford Coliseum was actually well received, a reviewer even anticipating their future as becoming even greater and more successful. The tour expanded beyond the UK and Ireland, as far as Oceania and North America, with 54 shows in total. In addition to this, the One Thing acoustic music video was released. 2012 kicked off strong as the band continued to tour throughout the UK and participated in numerous interviews. During January 3rd's concert, they would record footage to use for the Up All Night Tour DVD set to release in May. They still frequently vlogged during the tour, with video diaries being posted throughout the month, giving fans more glimpses into One Direction's lives. What Makes You Beautiful was later nominated for a Brit Award, which they would win, a big deal considering how the band was together for barely a full year. This month also saw the digital release of One Thing and its music video. On the 28th, One Direction and Big Time Rush met for the first time, and a few days later they started filming on the set of iCarly for I Go One Direction. Finally, February rolled around and What Makes You Beautiful was officially released in the US, making history as it instantly debuted on the Billboard Hot 100 and became the highest debut for a British act in 14 years. At this time, it was also their first American concert and they were an opening for Big Time Rush. One Direction made their first ever US TV appearance with 15,000 fans surrounding the plaza. Tickets for their Take Me Home tour would then go on sale on the 25th of February, which then announced their 2013 tour. Their current Up All Night tour continued well into March with a few TV appearances and outside performances being done, which greatly contributed to their image. The Up All Night album was released in the US, growing their fanbase even more so internationally. They were also interviewed by MTV this month and invited to the Kids' Choice Awards on the 31st of March. They delivered a What Makes You Beautiful performance and won awards for Favorite UK Band and Favorite UK Newcomer in the UK Kids' Choice Awards. 7th of April saw their first SNL skit and they became musical guests, performing What Makes You Beautiful and One Thing. One Direction also appeared in the Manuel Oritz Show sketch, alongside a Sunrise Australia interview. And on top of this, the I Go One Direction iCarly episode premiered on Nickelodeon. Their schedules were packed with constant appearances and performances, all while still doing concerts throughout the month. Up All Night, the live tour, finally released on DVD in May 2012 and topped the charts in 25 different countries. In the US, it debuted as #1 on the Billboard DVD charts. Throughout June, the group continued to tour to places like Detroit, Mexico City, Las Vegas, and Orlando. On the 16th, their Vivo channel reached 1 million subscribers. Finally, their Up All Night tour concluded with their last concert on the 1st of July in Sunrise. The box office gross revenue totaled to over $5 million. Not bad at all for a first tour. The end of the tour wouldn't signify a break for the boy band though, as on the 11th of July they had already started shooting a photo shoot for the Take Me Home album booklet. Once again, they were invited to the Teen Choice Awards on the 22nd, and they sent a video to showcase their support. By this time, it was clear that they had racked up millions of followers within such a short time span. One Direction also performed in the closing ceremony of the 2012 Summer Olympics, and the remainder of August and September consisted of more performances and a special on MTV, winning them even more MTV awards. The Live While We're Young music video and single rolled around during September, met with even more continuous success and praise from both critics and fans alike. It reached top 10 in most countries it charted in. October was no different to other previous months, with consistent performances. One Direction did win the 2012 Brit Award for Best British Single on the 21st. A few weeks later, the Little Things music video dropped and topped the charts yet again. They were a global phenomenon, reaching tons of positive feedback for their newest single. But the chaos would not stop there. The full Take Me Home album was released on the 9th of November, selling over 500,000 copies in the US alone during the first week. They shattered yet another world record by becoming the first boy band in US history to record 2 #1 albums within the same year. They continued to dominate the charts across the world. Many praised its quality of production, although there were a fair share of criticism for their generic style of music. One Direction later formally announced plans to create a movie, which would later be given the title This Is Us, set to release sometime end of 2013. On the 15th of November, they made an appearance on The Ellen Show, who seems like a very nice and polite and funny host. Not long after that, they performed Little Things at the Royal Variety performance in front of Queen Elizabeth II. Queen Elizabeth II watched One Direction perform. A Daily Star article revealed that Psycho believed that they fully expected them to make £100 million next year. They said, "These boys are like a runaway train and nothing will stop them." Psycho was pretty persuaded that they will reach billionaire status in the next few years, no problem. "2013 was expected to be another year of greatness, and that it was. On the 7th of January, the Kiss You music video was released, critics calling it a standout track on what would be their latest album. During this month, One Direction also arrived in Japan and participated in a press conference there, as well as accepted an award at the NRJ Music Awards. During February, they already began tour rehearsals for the Take Me Home tour, and the Kiss You single was officially released. On top of that, One Direction would also release a One Way or Another cover and music video to raise money for Comic Relief 2013. On the 20th, they attended the 2013 Brit Awards, and only 3 days later they would finally begin their Take Me Home tour, starting in London's O2 area. Throughout March, they would perform in Dublin, Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham, and numerous other cities and states. To celebrate the launch of the U Generation YouTube channel, they participated in the U Generation livestream and received thousands of viewers. On the 23rd of March, One Direction released a Nabisco ad, as the company was sponsoring their tour. During the same day, they were also invited to the Kids' Choice Awards, won an award, and performed Best Song Ever. An alternate Kiss You music video was released, giving fans even more content of the boy band. Beyond their performances, they also revealed the One Direction book title, Where We Are, Our Band, Our Story. All of their events and schedules seem to overlap because on the 30th of March, tickets went on sale for the O2, which was made exclusively for the filming of their movie. April started like any other month for the boy band, with them continuing to tour Europe. The 18th of April 2013 would actually mark the 1000-day anniversary of One Direction, which had a wax figure exhibit opened up in London to celebrate. The boy band won the Golden Flip Award, and the This Is Us poster was released on the 8th of May, which was made up of thousands of fan photos. One Direction content was just constantly being produced, as on the 16th they revealed the Where We Are tour with the first 13 dates released. Other dates would be given within a few months. Our Moment was scheduled to launch on the 6th of June in London, their first fragrance becoming the best-selling perfume of Christmas 2013. As a side note, I actually still own this perfume and I use it for special occasions. I was really hoping that, I'd go on a date with One Direction, but I guess it never happened. A week later, the music video for the Best Song Ever was being filmed, all while they continued to perform in their concerts. Then it dropped on the 22nd of July, breaking the 24-hour Vivo record with 10.9 million views on YouTube. Needless to say, it was well received by fans, especially considering the nature of the music video with each band member playing separate characters. One Direction would go on to win 6 awards at the August 2013 Teen Choice Awards, with their movie premiering on the 20th. They also performed on the Today Show and America's Got Talent. Although the boy band won Best Song of the Summer for Best Song Ever at the 2013 VMAs, they were booed during their acceptance speech. Lady Gaga even left the ceremony to protest against this, and she met with the boys backstage. Finally, the This Is Us movie dropped in numerous countries, receiving absolutely lethal reviews on IMDb. They received an overall score of 4.1 out of 10. Still, the box office was $68.5 million US, an indefinite huge profit to the $10 million budget for the movie. 270,000 copies were sold in the UK within 3 days, beating Michael Jackson's This Is It record. September continued with touring, and Midnight Memories, the third studio album, was announced. Story of My Life, which would be Midnight Memories' second official single, was released on the 28th of October, reaching the top 10 charts across numerous countries. Anticipation for the Midnight Memories album grew even more so after the music video for the single dropped. Conclusively, the Take Me Home tour ended on the 3rd of November. After 123 shows, they grossed $114 million, an overwhelming amount of success. They didn't actually mean to perform over 100 shows. The demand was so high for the tickets, organizers added new events. As Andy Green put it, One Direction were being worked like dogs. The Midnight Memories album was leaked 15 days later, Twitter exploding with panicked, excited, and cynical Directioners. One Direction was disappointed. Quote, "It's annoying because there's this big build-up and it affects sales," Liam told Digital Spy this week at a launch event for the record. "We really want a #1 album, so we're just kind of hoping for the best now." Louis also added, "It's just frustrating when you work so hard on an album and you kind of want everyone to hear it at the same time." Despite this setback, the album was still scheduled to release on the 25th of November. The boys hosted a 7-hour livestream 2 days prior to its launch called One Direction Day to build more anticipation and discussion surrounding the album. December 2013 was still packed with performances. They were in SNL again, X Factor, and received an NRJ Music Award. To wrap up 2013, they would film the Midnight Memories music video. One Direction officially became the first boy band ever to gross $1 billion. This empire of 5 British boys was an unstoppable force. It's 2014, a Sesame Street clip with One Direction is posted, there's interviews, a teaser, and finally a music video released all in the span of 4 weeks. Most importantly, the group was finally receiving somewhat of a break. This year started off with lots of traveling, going out, and partying, with the boys spotted out and about everywhere. March was when they started to film the You and I music video and began rehearsals for the Where We Are tour. April 18th was the premiere for the You and I music video, with a tour press conference on the 25th of April finally launching the start of the Where We Are tour. As they continued to tour across the world, they announced their second fragrance called You and I. In collaboration with Telstra, the #PickMe1D video promo launched on the 18th of June, which was a competition to submit an artistic poster and win an opportunity to meet the group in Miami. The You and I fragrance video released on the 20th of July as they prepared to record another concert film following the conflicting success of their first movie. The North American leg of the tour began on the 1st of August as their schedules were packed with concerts. They still managed to make an appearance on the Today Show. With all of this happening, One Direction announced their 4th album 4, which was set to release on the 17th of November that year. To build anticipation, they offered the song Fireproof as free to download, obtaining 1.1 million downloads within 24 hours. Steal My Girl was released on the 29th of September as the first single from the 4th album, a music video already in the works. Finally, the 5th of October would mark the last day of the Where We Are tour. It was the most commercially successful tour in 2014, making $290 million, and it was the 15th highest grossing tour of all time. The Where We Are film released exclusively in cinemas on the 11th of October, scoring a better rating than its previous successor with a whopping 6.7 out of 10. The box office was $15 million. Directioners finally received the 4-album track list. Steal My Girl, Ready to Run, Where Do Broken Hearts Go, 18, Girl Almighty, Fool's Gold, Night Changes, No Control, Fireproof, Spaces, Stockholm Syndrome, and Clouds. The deluxe version of the album included 4 bonus songs. On the 24th of October, Steal My Girl's music video finally premiered. The boy band continued to do promotional appearances in anticipation of the album's release. In addition, tour rehearsals for their 4th concert tour on the road again were already starting in November. Ready to Run, their latest single, was released on the 6th, but 4 leaked the very next day anyway. It originally leaked because a Brazilian retailer sold the albums early and a Directioner uploaded the songs online. Chaos ensued, to say the least. Regardless, later that week, One Direction won 4 MTV EMAs and did an X Factor live performance. A few of their songs were released whilst they did interviews and appearances. 4 finally officially released on the 17th of November. This marked One Direction as the first band to have 4 albums sitting at number 1 in the US. It was one of the top best-selling 2014 albums, as they sold 3.2 million copies across the world. A Night Changes music video finally dropped on the 21st, followed by a live performance on the 23rd in the 2014 American Music Awards. The boy band also won 3 awards. They also attended the 2014 Area Awards on the 26th. December 2014 consisted of numerous appearances, particularly on the BBC Music Awards, SNL, and The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. Before we delve into another highly anticipated year of One Direction and what people would later find out to be their last, let's take a look at the behind the scenes of the band, controversies they've experienced over the years, and the highly impactful fan base, Directioners. So I thought I would look at their most active years of 2011 to 2014 first, focusing only on their careers and timeline before looking into what their experiences were like personally. I feel like this way will also explain the build-up to what would inevitably mark the end of the One Direction era. Despite their demanding and busy schedules, Niall, Louis, Liam, Harry, and Zayn did date numerous celebrities throughout their years of being on One Direction. Liam first started dating Danielle Pizzer in 2010 after they met on the set of The X Factor, in which they dated for a few years before they split in 2013. At the time, Liam was 16 and Danielle was 22. The next person he'd date, Sophia Smith, was a childhood friend and they were together between 2013 to 2015. Niall wouldn't publicly date until 2013, when he and Ellie Goulding went out on a few dates for a month or so. The song Don't by Ed Sheeran shaded the duo as Ellie was also seeing Ed at the time. Back in 2014, Niall and Barbara Palvin were reportedly together, with the relationship coming to an end after fizzing out because they wouldn't see each other enough. Melissa Whitelaw would also date him for a couple of months in mid-2015, but they ended it due to long distance. Harry had an extensive dating history. His first public relationship with Caroline Flack when he was just 17 and she was in her 30s. They broke up eventually due to the criticism surrounding their relationship. Harry also had a short-lived fling with Emily Attack in 2012. One of his iconic relationships would be with Taylor Swift between 2012 to 2013. During 2013, when Nicole Scherzinger was just 25, she would date Harry when he was 19. In the same year, he'd also start to date Kendall Jenner for roughly a year, which took tabloids by storm. Between 2014 to 2015, he would have multiple flings with celebrities such as Erin Foster, Nadine Leopold, Sarah Sampio, and Georgia Fowler. Louis has dated Eleanor Calder since 2011, their relationship being fairly on and off. He had dated 2 other women between 2015 to 2016, Brianna Jungwirth, they would have a son together, and Danielle Campbell. In 2010 to 2011, Zayn would date Geneva Lane, who also performed on The X Factor. She was 20 and he was 17 at the time. After that, for 4 months he would date Rebecca Ferguson, who was also on The X Factor. Later that year, Stephanie Davis and Zayn were confirmed to be together. His most prominent relationship in the early to mid-2010s was with Little Mix member Perry Edwards. They got engaged in 2013 but broke it off in 2015, rumored that Zayn did it over text. Only a few short months later, he was photographed out and about with Gigi Hadid. 1D's rise to stardom was both extremely brutal and rewarding to all members. For 4 consistent years, they did back-to-back performances, showings, interviews, photo shoots, and so on. As with many celebrities, there's always a downside to their fame and success. For One Direction, it was particularly their controlling management. Hey Angel on YouTube actually has a 46-minute video going into the depth of the dark side of One Direction, which really gives a renowned perspective on their few years together, which I recommend watching. It's important to note that while their performances and productions were of high quality and success, a casual fan or viewer would not be knowledgeable on how problematic their management and staff was. I highly encourage you to watch her video to get a better in-depth look at this aspect of the band, but I will summarize the main points of it to get a scope. I think the most blatant issue was how overworked they were. Throughout their timeline, they had back-to-back performances, interviews, and shows, some of which would even end up overlapping on the same day. Louis even stated that their management announced a new album before 1D even made it. A lot of the group experienced health issues as a result of being overworked and overcome with stress. Liam says, in the band, the best way to secure us because of how big we got was just to lock us in our rooms. What's in the room? A mini bar. So at a certain point, I thought, I'm just going to have a party for one, and that seemed to carry on for many years of my life. It was wild, but it was the only way you could get the frustration out. Something I've never talked about in public before, but which I have come to terms with since leaving the band, is that I was suffering from an eating disorder. I just go for days, sometimes 2 or 3 days straight, without eating anything at all. It got quite serious, although at the time I didn't recognize it for what it was. When I look back at images of myself before the final tour, I can see how ill I was. The workload and the pace of life on the road, put together with the pressures and strains of everything going on within the band, had badly affected my eating habits. These quotes are only very few examples from Liam and Zayn. Each member experienced numerous personal problems, both physical and mental, as a result of being a part of the band.
One Direction was branded and marketed a very specific way in many different aspects to appeal to a young audience of teenage girls. Basically what I mean is how they looked and how they were perceived was completely decided by their management and their team and everyone in charge in order to make them likable and appeal to a certain specific audience. One Direction was not a band, they were a brand.
Like many artists, they were given a brand they had to sell, to advertise. Each band member was assigned with a particular personality trait and style, most likely to appeal to as many teenagers as possible. For their styles, Harry was known for wearing blazers, Liam would wear plaid, Zayn's was the varsity jacket, Niall the polo shirts, and Louis the stripes. The regulation was strict. Liam revealed nobody else was permitted to have clashing or similar styles. Additionally, all members had to keep their haircuts a certain way, and weren't allowed to dye it, aside from Zayn's streak of blonde hair, which also meant to retain his bad boy image anyway, which will be discussed in a moment. They had to maintain their young teen boy appearance, so no beards were allowed either. Personality traits were no exception to this rule. Harry was labeled as a womanizer and a flirt. Liam was a parent figure of the group, meant to look after the other boys. Zayn was the mysterious and cool bad boy. Niall was initially the member that One Direction was built around when the group was first put together during the X Factor. He was meant to be funny, sweet, and always hungry. Louis was given the class clown brand initially, this average boy you could meet anywhere, thus making him more relatable to people. Out of the whole group, Louis was the only one to be rebranded as he got older. There is a lot of speculation surrounding One Direction's relationship with Simon Cowell. A lot of the fanbase dislikes Simon for numerous reasons, particularly for his label's treatment of One Direction. A leak of the X Factor contract in 2008 stated that Simon was protected from any of the acts saying defamatory things about him. So there's a lot of speculation surrounding how 1D truly felt about him, as they couldn't reveal anything anyway. Additionally, the winner of the season would be given significantly less money than promised, as they'd only retain £1 million after 4 albums are released. Generally, Simon was heavily disliked for overworking the group and for the restrictiveness of the band's freedom. These limitations would ultimately be one of the causes of its detrimental end. Some of the drama One Direction faced at the time would not be notable to most news outlets and fans if they had formed in the 2020s. But this is the early 2010s. They're a new young boy band with millions of preteen fans, so there is bound to be issues and arguments over even the smallest actions. Let's delve into a brief timeline of their major controversies as a group. In the beginning of their careers, there was little controversy. The main issues X Factor fans had with the band at the time is the unfair advantage One Direction and another group of singers received as they auditioned as solos, but then became part of the groups to make it into the next stages. However, 2012 would be the start of their first public dispute with other public figures. In April 2012, a trademark infringement lawsuit was filed by the American band that went by One Direction as well. They had used the name since 2009 and already applied to register the trademark name back in February 2011. The band claimed they were entitled to 3 times the profit made by the UK One Direction, and requested for $1 million in damages. Psycho Records countersued as a result, stating the US group was attempting to profit from 1D's recent success. Later that year, the UK One Direction won the right to keep the band name, so the US band ended up changing their name to Uncharted Shores. During this year, a video also surfaced of Niall greeting Dublin Directioners with the term "you shower of redacted," which he would later insist was just banter between fans. He would tweet out, "Really sorry if I caused any offense. It was just banter with fans who I think more of as mates." Toward the end of 2012 would also begin a feud between the UK bands The Wanted and One Direction. The Wanted made an appearance on Radio 1 for an interview with Chris Mullis, with the band implying 1D doesn't switch up their sound, and they're cliche. He added, "Our new single I Found You is a bit different. We like to mix up. We try not to be stereotypical." In a deleted tweet, Harry replied to the interview by stating, "Chris Smalls is actually right though. If 1D aren't in the picture, The Wanted would have been way more popular." Most of the drama between the two bands were very petty as they mocked and mimicked each other. In 2013, during the VMAs, Miley Cyrus would storm out before it ended as she was unhappy One Direction won's Song of the Summer. She would shadily tweet out, "Leaving the VMAs. No, it's not over. I'm no psychic, but congrats. # Song of the Summer." On the 27th of May 2014, a video of Zayn and Louis smoking weed was leaked. They were both passing a blunt in the back of a car. 8 years ago, this was highly controversial, with many Directioners stating they could no longer support the band or be a part of the fandom. A lot of people defended the duo, so the debate on whether this was acceptable or not was heavily contested. Zayn and Louis were again caught smoking on the 1st of August on their hotel balcony, and once more backstage of the BBC Awards in December of that year. Louis and Naughty Boy also got into a petty exchange on Twitter shortly after Zayn left One Direction. Naughty Boy posted a picture of him and Zayn, to which Louis would respond in 2 tweets. "Remember when you were 12 and you used to think those Mac filters for your pictures were cool, haha. Some people still do, ha. Jesus, forgot you were such an in-demand producer. How does it feel to be riding on the back of someone else's career?" To which Zayn responded with, "Remember when you had a life and stopped making bitchy comments about mine?" Although there is quite a lot of personal drama in 1D, such as rumors of feuds or hatred between members, my focus is more on the memorable moments to keep this section succinct. It is likely that due to their strict management, there were not many controversies as their image was kept relatively clean by Psycho. A lot of controversies also stem from the fandom, as Directioners had quite a lot of discourse, as we'd come to find out. As One Direction's careers skyrocketed, so did their fanbase, quickly racking up hundreds of millions of fans across the world called Directioners, or Directionators were the names of newer fans. 1D grew its own subculture, aesthetics, and fandom. With its strong influence, it shaped the 2010s internet for teenagers, particularly for tween girls as they were the majority of the fandom. This sweep of new fans every day came with its fair share of content such as video edits, fan cams, fanfictions, and shipping wars. With every fanbase, there is always a spectrum between casual fans and extreme fans. During the reign of One Direction, gatekeeping bands and artists were quite common. If you didn't know all of their songs or every single detail about the individual members, you were ostracized by others. Casual fans were people who knew their bigger songs or followed them on social media and would take glimpses into their lives. Directioners who delved deeper into the fandom would buy merchandise, create content, follow or run update blogs, and so on. As 1D had such a large following of teenagers, the group almost symbolized a coming-of-age period for so many people who grew alongside the band. This was one of the many reasons why 1D appealed to millions. And if you were as passionate about a topic as 2013 Directioners were, it was inevitable that the fanbase would clash against each other in ship wars, discussions about the boys, headcanons, or personal preferences regarding their songs and music. As far back as their days in the X Factor, the fandom almost immediately grew on Tumblr, Twitter, and even LiveJournal was used up until 2013. The early 2010s was the era for blogging, utilizing GIFs, fan art, edits, memes, and text posts. One of the biggest pinnacles of the fanbase, and what still holds up today, was fanfiction. Whether it was a self-insert of the reader and a member, imagines, pairing between members, their real-life girlfriends, or with other celebrities, within 2 years of the band coming together, AO3 had an explosion of new fanfictions in media every day. By September of 2013, 1D reached 14,000 works. A great example of its impact was when the fanfiction After, inspired by Harry Styles, went on to land not 1 but 4 movies in the span of 4 years, with a 5th one in production currently. Although not all of the fanfictions had obtained this sort of reception, there are plenty of iconic and popular pieces which had received audiences beyond the fandom. In the sphere of fanfictions, there lies a more controversial aspect of the topic, RPF, which stands for Real People Fiction. RPF has had history in itself, as it had been around for as far back as the 1960s. Having its fair share of controversy for being problematic and invasive, pairings between One Direction members were fairly common. There are many arguments surrounding RPF, with debates of its ethics. It could be argued that celebrity is the contemporary or postmodern fictional character. Just as boy bands are generally comprised of a group of created personalities, so too are any celebrity you see reported in the papers. Jennifer Lopez, Tom and Nicole, Elijah Wood. These celebrities are creating a character, performing a fictional character in a way, to the media and the general public. Just as the record labels create personalities and characters for members of pop groups, so too are publicists, editors, lawyers, etc., creating a personality for celebrities. This is a compelling and interesting point to make. Some artists do try to sell an image or personality that does not represent them personally, Kesha being the best example. Contrasting arguments against RPF vary, but one quote that stood out to me was, quote, "When you create a universe with characters and situations, you get to play God. The universe, the characters, the situations are all objects that a writer manipulates to her heart's content. When you write about real people, regardless of situation, you have turned them into objects. Maybe this is neither good nor bad, but I feel that much of what past and current women's and minority struggles are about is a passion to not be objectified, to be viewed as individuals, as human beings, not things." Although the point about minorities is not applicable to the whole British boy band, it highlights the thin line between reality and fiction. To draw back to One Direction, the RDF argument is one of the most prominent issues with ship culture within the fandom. Those against RDF are called antis. The shipping is interchangeable. Louis with Liam, Zayn with Niall, Liam with Harry, and because they're a band of 5, there's an additional 23 other combination pairings. The biggest pairing in One Direction, though, was Larry Stallinson. Larry is the ship name for Louis and Harry. Conspiracies surrounding their relationship goes as far back as their days of X Factor. Due to the overwhelming amount of content, theories, and discussions, I might actually make a future video just solely focusing on the subculture surrounding Larry if any of my subscribers are interested. But I will briefly skim over it since the pairing was a huge aspect of the 1D fanbase during the early 2010s. When did the shipping between the two boys even begin? The Tumblr blog British Shower has documented everything Larry related from 2010 to 2020, starting with July 23rd of 2010, when Louis jumped into Harry's arms to celebrate making it through boot camp on X Factor. The next month, Louis got hurt by a sea urchin. Only Harry took him to the hospital, and when he saw Louis after that, he was the first out of the 4 to hug him. This was most likely what sparked interest in the relationship between the two. Throughout their careers, rumors would build around every interaction they shared and what they said about each other. Invasive? Yes, but this was a pillar of fandom culture. One of the most interesting pieces of media I found was the Larry Bible, a 14-minute long compilation re-uploaded to YouTube showcasing every interaction they've had together. Another impactful Larry post was on the 2nd of October 2011. Posted by Louis himself, he tweeted, "Always in my heart at Harry Styles. Yours sincerely, Louis." Has since received 2.8 million retweets, making it the 6th most retweeted tweet of all time. The final piece of Larry media I'll mention is the Wellington video, posted on April the 22nd of 2012. I mention this because people consider it the best proof of the pairing being a real couple. With all of these proofs and videos and edits, I am not implying I believe they were a real couple or they weren't. However, it would be incohesive not to discuss Larry because of how overwhelmingly influential it was in the fanbase. To this day, there are still people documenting and discussing any direct or indirect actions between Harry and Louis. Tropes were also a very prominent concept on fan accounts and blog posts. Tropes are a popular subculture within the fandom of headcanoning styles and AUs, alternate universes, for the band. Popular tropes included the punk trope. One Direction would have photoshopped images of each member being punk along with fanfiction and fan art. The edits date back to late 2012. The flower crown trope. March 2013 marked when a Tumblr or Twitter meme of editing flower crowns on the boy band began to rise in popularity, which inspired fans to throw flower crowns on stage during performances. Harry eventually did wear flower crowns during concerts, which is a perfect example of the fanbase's influence. High school alternate universes. Like most male celebrities in the early 2010s, plenty of high school AU fanfictions were made, whether they were self-inserts or about the band. There were also canon-divergent AUs, where the boys would do something else in their careers, such as not try out for X Factor, and finally the post-One Direction trope, which was set after the band breaks up, much of the fantasy being ruined by what was to come in 2015. The community in itself was a very strong and passionate fanbase. As One Direction was a boy band, their target audience was teenage girls, which they had amassed in the millions. There were plenty of outliers who were an exception to the stereotype, but at this time period it fueled the jokes and ridicules fangirl culture would endure. Still, One Direction had a large community spread across dozens of platforms, sites, and forums. Some may have used it as a form of escapism, One Direction being the catalyst of the teenage dream. Years later, even when looking back, X Directioners look at this fanbase and period with fondness. In a Refinery29 article, Why Am I So Obsessed? One Direction fans break down 10 years of fandom, many older fans reflected on the brand One Direction sold to them. They had this organic ability to have a good time with everything they were doing and with each other. It all just seemed like so much fun, and fun you desperately wanted to be a part of. 2015 was expected to be another huge year of success for One Direction. Sitting at 4 released albums with almost unbeatable chart hits, the group was expected to tower up yet again. Their most recent world tour, On the Road Again, began toward the end of 2014, and the group were still touring throughout the early months of 2015. But it would only be 3 months into the new year when disaster struck. The early morning of the 25th of March 2015, One Direction's Facebook would drop a post that announced the following. After 5 incredible years, Zayn Malik has decided to leave One Direction. Niall, Harry, Liam, and Louis will continue as a 4-piece and look forward to the forthcoming concerts of their world tour and recording their 5th album, due to be released later this year. My life with One Direction has been more than I could ever have imagined. But after 5 years, I feel it is now the right time for me to leave the band. I'd like to apologize to the fans if I've let anyone down, but I have to do what feels right in my heart. I am leaving because I want to be a normal 22-year-old who is able to relax and have some private time out of the spotlight. I know I have 4 friends for life in Louis, Liam, Harry, and Niall. I know they will continue to be the best band in the world. We're really sad to see Zayn go, but we totally respect his decision and send him all our love for the future. The past 5 years have been beyond amazing, and we've gone through so much together, so we will always be friends. The 4 of us will now continue. We're looking forward to recording the new album and seeing all the fans on the next stage of the world tour. I would like to thank Zayn for everything he has done for One Direction. Since I first met Zayn in 2010, I have grown very, very fond and immensely proud of him. I have seen him grow in confidence, and I'm truly sorry to see him leave. As for One Direction, fans can be rest assured that Niall, Liam, Harry, and Louis are hugely excited about the future of the band. The news immediately went unbelievably viral as hundreds of news outlets would report on it. An average of over 4,500 tweets were being made every minute discussing his departure. Fans were imploring their idol to change his mind, while some compared his departure to a death, and one distraught fan even insisting her world had stopped turning. The fanbase was in mass hysteria. There was even a disturbing viral hashtag, which I won't even delve into because the name is already self-explanatory enough. But this hashtag caught the attention of plenty of news outlets, further tainting the fanbase's reputation. Aside from the trending hashtag, his leave had a fair share of rumors, as his reasoning, "I want to be a normal 22-year-old, came with speculation on whether there were other reasons as to why he left the band. Some rumors were somewhat reasonable assumptions, such as issues with the band members or the record label. Others were a bit out of left field. Zayn's first major interview after leaving the band gave more clarity to his reasoning. "There was never any room for me to experiment creatively in the band. If I would sing a hook or verse slightly R&B or slightly myself, it would always be recorded 50 times until there was a straight version that was pop, generic as fuck, so they could use that version. Whenever I would suggest something, it was like it didn't fit us. There was just this general conception that the management already had of what they want for the band, and I just wasn't convinced with what we were selling. I wasn't 100% behind the music. It wasn't me. It was music that was already given to us, and we were told this is what was going to sell to these people. As much as we were the biggest, most famous boy band in the world, it felt weird. We were told to be happy about something that we weren't happy about." Zayn says there was no one incident that led to his departure. "I guess I just wanted to go home from the beginning," he says. "I was always thinking it, I just didn't know when I was going to do it. Then by the time I decided to go, it just felt right on that day. I woke up on that morning, if I'm being completely honest with you, and was like, I need to go home. I just need to be me now because I've had enough. I was with my little cousin at the time. We were sat in the hotel room, and I was just, should I go home? And he was like, if you want to go home, let's go home. So we left." Contrastingly, the remaining members of the band did not publicly speak out on Zayn leaving until a James Gordon interview on the 14th of May 2015. They stated they were on good terms with Zayn, Louis claiming they had contacted and cleared the air between them. Liam said they did feel angry and upset initially, but have come to terms with it and claimed there were no hard feelings since then. When James asked the band if they had ever considered calling it a day for their band, Niall said they hadn't at all and they enjoyed every aspect of the band, looking forward to more concerts and work ahead.
Did you ever think, oh, maybe we should get someone else? Maybe we should bring someone else into the band?
No.
Well, hang on, let me finish the question.
I know where you're...
Did you ever think, oh, hang on?
No.
The show must go on, with or without Zayn, and so it did. The remainder of 2015 consisted of more interviews, performances, and finishing off the On the Road Again tour. During May, Directioners began to promote No Control throughout social media. Fans called it #Project No Control, #No Control Day, texting and tweeting to international radio stations, leading the song to be played on over 60 stations. A few days later, One Day won the Top Duo and Top Touring Artist Awards in the 2015 Billboard's Music Awards. Throughout June, they continued the On the Road Again tour and performed throughout Europe. Brussels, Belgium was the first time they had performed No Control in 2018. On the 24th of June, the Between Us fragrance was launched. Zayn's absence painfully noticeable. 14th of July was the day Louis and his partner Brianna would announce they were expecting their first child. I mention this because, of course, it did not come without the rumors of the baby being fake and secretly a cover-up for Larry. On the 31st of July, Drag Me Down was dropped, without any promotions or even an announcement. It still managed to top charts internationally, with the song being the first single from Made in the AM. It was the first material made after Zayn left. 20 days later, the Drag Me Down music video premiered on Vivo. Rumors revolving around a possible hiatus would begin to spread, and on the 24th of August, Niall and Louis would confirm on Twitter that they will all be taking some time off from performing next year. They also assured fans that the band is not splitting up. They were going to start their hiatus in 2016 to work on individual projects, but they will remain together and plan to work together in the future. Regardless of the announcement, they continued the On the Road Again tour throughout the next few months. One Direction also finished filming the Perfect music video on the 11th of September. Less than 2 weeks after that, they'd perform live at the Apple Music Festival in London, and on the same day would announce Made in the AM and released Infinity as a pre-order single. One Day would also reveal the tracklist on their Snapchat stories. On the 16th of October, their second single Perfect was released. It reached the Billboard Top 10 and broke the Beatles' record for the most Top 10 Hot 100 debuts among bands. They also released the music video for the song, which sits at over 500 million views today. Home also dropped on the 21st of October. Finally, the On the Road Again tour ended on the 31st of October 2015 after playing 80 shows across the world. The tour grossed $208 million. And a few months later, Directioners would come to find out it would be the last One Direction tour ever. November consisted of new song releases, with North American Directioners being able to listen to Made in the AM for the first time in special listening sessions. The album was leaked as a result of this due to an issue with security. On the 6th of November, History was released. The music video was a homage to the band, including clips of Zayn. The clip ends with the group walking off in separate directions. They were meant to run back together, as director Winston said. The ending wasn't supposed to look like they were just walking off in different directions. It was kind of like a see you guys in a bit. For the next few weeks, songs such as End of the Day, Love You Goodbye, and What a Feeling were released, all mostly well received by Directioners. Made in the AM finally dropped on the 13th of November, a successful One Direction album yet again dominating the charts across the world. It quickly became the 6th best-selling album of 2015. For a second year in a row, One Direction won the Artist of the Year award at the 2015 American Music Awards. A couple of days after that, they'd perform Perfect on The X Factor, and a few other songs on Good Morning America. Ellen DeGeneres also interviewed them. December 2015 was consistently filled with appearances in shows, performances, and awards. A carpool karaoke video with James Gordon was aired, with the four members singing and talking to James. Although the exact day of their official hiatus cannot be pinpointed due to conflicting sources, it is safe to assume their break began sometime this month. Many fans were devastated at the news, but One Day assured them that they'd be back soon. Directioners eagerly awaited more news about the group, but during January 2016, Us Weekly stated that One Day had split permanently. Unnamed sources claimed none of the group members renewed their contracts. Representatives denied the report, stating nothing has changed regarding the hiatus plans for the group, and all will be revealed in due time from the band members' own mouths. It seemed for the most part, however, that they were more interested in focusing in their own careers. During the 2017 Brit Awards, One Day had won the Video of the Year award for History's music video. Liam was the only one who attended and accepted the award on behalf of all members. Over a year later, it was revealed that the group had applied for removal within the company's house registry, thus folding their touring company. Closing One Direction as a chapter, all band members went their separate ways. Whether it was with more produced music, guest appearances, drama, or other career venues, it was clear that all 5 of the boys were ready to move on. Harry signed a solo contract with Columbia Records in June of 2016, set to release his debut album Harry Styles only 11 months later. The album won him an ARIA Music Award for Best International Artist. He went on to perform on a highly acclaimed world tour, with Rolling Stone's Rob writing, "A year into his solo rebirth, he's earned his stripes as a master of every rock and roll move, wearing the tradition like it's a coat he had tailored just for him." And, as he has always wanted, Harry would explore the acting world, landing roles in Dunkirk and Happy Together. Whether he was a good actor or not is heavily contested. He would also guest host The Late Late Show with James Gordon twice and Saturday Night Live 5 times. Harry would go on to release another highly acclaimed album, Fine Line, in 2019. As for his dating life, he'd reunite with Kendall Jenner several times, most recently meeting with her on The Late Late Show with James Gordon in late 2019. His third album, Harry's House, was released during May 2022 and won the MTV Video Music Award for Album of the Year. After meeting Olivia Wilde on the set of Don't Worry Darling, they began to date in January 2021 and are still together according to tabloids. Harry would also star in the romantic drama My Policeman, which released on the 21st of October 2022. It received mixed reception. Now, like Harry, would also land a solo record deal in 2016. He released singles This Town and Slow Hands from his album Flicker in 2017. To promote his music, he would begin to travel to perform. He'd also start up his own golfing company, Modest, which became very successful and well received by the golfing community. Niall also aimed to make golf more accessible and have more girls play the sport. In his personal life, he'd begin to date Hailey Steinfeld in 2018. After only a few months, they broke up, as their work schedules didn't give them time for a relationship. Niall's second album was released in 2020, titled Heartbreak Weather. He began dating fashion buyer Amelia Woolley during May 2020. As of 2022, they still seem to be together and are just private about their dating life. Louis' top priority in 2016 was the birth of his son Freddie. His singles Back to You and Just Like You were released in 2017. And he even returned as a judge to the X Factor. His mother unfortunately passed away in December 2016. After I lost my mom, every song I wrote felt, not pathetic, but that it lacked true meaning to me, he said. I felt that, as a songwriter, I wasn't going to move on until I'd written a song like that. His sister Felicity passed away in March 2019. The song Two of Us, which was released that same year, would be perfectly encapsulating his feelings of loss and grief. His first album, Wolves, came out in 2020. Just recently, his song Bigger Than Me and its music video released in September 2022. Louis' second album, Faith in the Future, was released on the 11th of November 2022 independently through BMG and was very well received by fans. As Zayn left the band back in 2015, he had been operating his solo career the longest between 1D's members. His debut studio album, Mind of Mine, dropped in March 2016 and received overwhelming support. The release date of the album marked the 1-year anniversary of Zayn leaving One Direction. After winning an American Music Award and MTV VMA, he would release his second album, Icarus Falls, in December 2018. As for his dating life, he broke up with his fiancée Perry Edwards shortly after he had left the band, and began dating Gigi Hadid in late 2015. Their relationship was on and off for years. In September 2020, they welcomed their first child, Kai Hadid Malik, but a year after that they were supposedly broken off for good. 2021 had rumors of Zayn allegedly shoving Gigi's mother into a dresser, in which Yolanda filed a police report for. The most recent news of his dating life is him unfollowing Gigi amidst the Leonardo DiCaprio dating rumors. Aside from singing, Liam began to explore the ventures of being a producer, remixing several tracks with other influential producers. He would get together with Cheryl, who met Liam during X Factor. He was 14 and she was a judge. He also became a father 1 year after dating Cheryl Cole in 2016, as they had a son named Bear. Despite breaking up in July 2018, they co-parented actively. He went on to release the song Strip That Down in 2017, which reached number 10 on the US Billboard Hot 100. He would then release his debut album titled LP1 in 2019. For a brief time, he had also been linked to Naomi Campbell before being engaged to Maya Henry in August 2020. They split less than a year later, before getting back together again. As of May 2022, the pair have broken up indefinitely, and he has already started dating Alina Mola. Many critics may write off One Direction as just another flashy 2010s boy band, a product of its past. For fans and anyone else involved in the community, it was and still is so much more. Their notable achievements and influence in only 5 short years are commendable, and their music pieces translate well regardless of context, even a decade later. Their influence extended beyond just music, as seen in movies, shows, social media, and almost everything else. Despite 1D's indefinite hiatus in 2015, the group individually found success in other venues, and maybe this was for the best. I can't help but wonder what would have happened to the band if Zayn didn't leave and if they stayed together. Would they have kept making music as consistently as they did? Would they have gradually faded into niche obscurity or continued to dominate the music industry? As a TMRW opinion piece states, there's a belief boy bands have an expiry date, and it's likely their management felt they needed to get as much out of the band while they believed they were still relevant. It's likely that fans would have stuck around if the members took time between their albums and tours. In 2015, when the hiatus began, people wondered if One Direction really could ever come back, and if they did, would fans still really care about them? There are so many what-ifs surrounding the band's demise that we will never get a definite answer on. If Zayn stayed, if they hadn't broken up, if their management was allegedly just a little bit better. Regardless, One Direction had cemented itself as a prominent band of the early to mid-2010s. The band, short-lived, but their success, forever immortal.